general counsel, we were talking about our law conference and what the focus of our law conference was going to be that year. And he brought up diversity and inclusion. And I just distinctly remember sitting there like, is this the new buzzword? Is this the new, flavor of the month? And I'm so happy to say that in the past 5 years, it's evident from today, from all the speakers that we've heard, from Jane at CNA, to all of our speakers in the panel, that this is a real thing. It's important for the success of companies, and it's important in the world that we live in to have diversity and inclusion. And it's defined, the definition of it is different than maybe when it originally was thought of or considered when we first started talking about it. So, this is another thing that we go in and talk to regulators about and just let them know what our companies are doing to bring this to be part of our company and what we think of. There's a huge, I think earlier today we talked about the talent, talent gap, or the talent crisis, I think was the exact word that was used. And we need to make sure as companies that this is something that's at the forefront because it's important to people. It's, millennials to older people to everybody to be included. And, as a government affairs representative, as an advocate for the company, as a representative, I go in and talk to regulators about the work that we're doing as a company and the importance of diversity and inclusion. It's definitely at the forefront.
Thank you. And so something that's important when I think about collaboration is how do we help back it up with data and information. And so, Bill, you've done a phenomenal job at IICF with your Women in Insurance Conference, and you had a Marsh white paper that just came out in December. Yep. And so we sent that out in some of the blasts, and we'll make sure we post that in the LinkedIn group in case people didn't see it. But can you talk a little bit about why you created the white paper and why it's important to have those findings?
Sure. Let me just highlight two findings that I would like to reinforce. But even before I talk about the conference, I'd like to kind of follow up on just the whole message of diversity and inclusion. You may have seen my bio. I'm not from insurance. I spent 30 plus years with the Walt Disney Company, representing their theme parks around the world through Walt Disney Parks and Resorts. And one of the things that we learned through Disney is that the differences between a discussion brings the creativity of the product. And so when I think about diversity and inclusion, I think about it from an innovation standpoint, from a creativity standpoint. And then you can layer it to now practical things. So we've done quite a few of these conferences, and our most recent white paper is published. Two things stand out to me that were learnings. And I think these two apply to this group as well. The first one is lower the ladder. As you progress in your career, there's a lot of people who also want to progress behind you. And it's part of your role as a leader to lower the ladder, to help those also achieve success from any diverse background, from any diverse thought process, lower the ladder. The second one, and it's one that I think even today with emerging leaders, you need to learn, unlearn, and relearn. That if you look at the changes that are taking place across this industry, it's so important now to learn, but to also help yourself and others unlearn how they've thought about things. Diversity and inclusion is a perfect example of unlearning maybe some of the rules you thought about that guide us in diversity and inclusion, and then to relearn, to look for the new ways to progress and grow. So those are, I think, two of the facts that came out of the conferences that we tried to highlight and I think are ultimately important for everyone.
Thanks, Bill. That's great. It's really a fantastic white paper, and so they did phenomenal work, and I'm excited for the work that's ahead. And so that's a document that then can be shared with regulators that can help tell that story in a different way, that can be shared with people within our own companies, and also shared with students. So as we keep thinking about is how do we take content that we're creating from a silo, and then how do we share it into other parts of our organizations, of other parts of big issues that we're trying to move the needle on. So I'm going to turn to Brooke and ask her to share from her previous role when she was at APCIA. She was a master storyteller, and so she's a former reporter, and so Brooke is constantly bringing her camera around. But what tips or thoughts do you have on how the industry tells their story, and what should they be thinking about when they're trying to connect all this and tell their story in different ways?
So that's really funny. Yes, I do. You see me, I usually have the camera